The scream tore through the metaverse, a raw sound that did not belong to any avatar, shaking pixels into static. Ethan stumbled back, his vision fractured by cascading error codes. "What the hell was that?" he whispered, his breath caught between awe and terror. Beside him, Claire's avatar froze mid-motion, her eyes wide and glassy, like she was caught in a system lock. A ghostly line of text scrawled across Ethan's field of view. "You were never meant to be here." He blinked hard, but the words burned brighter, searing into his mind. Then the sound came again, not from speakers, not from code, but from somewhere deeper, as though the metaverse itself was screaming. The floor glitched beneath his feet, reality flickering between a neon-lit cityscape and endless void. "Stay calm," Claire said, her voice breaking. But even her voice seemed fractured, like a recording trapped on repeat. And then as silence pressed in, Ethan felt every avatar in the room turn to stare at him. The silence that followed was worse than the scream, stretching like a void between heartbeats. Ethan gasped, trying to steady his voice. "Claire, did you see that?" She blinked, but her avatar still trembled, caught in an invisible current. The plaza's neon glow dimmed, casting everyone in pale blue shadows, while the air itself shimmered like heat haze. In the corner, a childlike figure appeared, Lucy, wide-eyed and trembling, her avatar far too fragile for this world. She whispered, "It hurts," though her body bore no wounds. Ethan's stomach knotted, because the sound in her voice wasn't digital, it was human, raw, and desperate. Claire reached out, pulling Lucy close, her expression torn between fear and defiance. The plaza pulsed once, as if the metaverse had taken a breath, and every player froze again, waiting. Ethan crouched near Lucy, his avatar trembling as static surged across his hands. "Lucy, what hurts?" he asked, his voice low, urgent. Her lips quivered, but when she tried to speak again, the words broke into shards of static, splintering like glass. Claire held her tighter, eyes darting around the plaza. Every frozen avatar watched in silence, their faces lifeless yet suffocating. Ethan felt the weight of thousands of stares pressing into his skin, like he was drowning in invisible judgment. Then faintly, the text reappeared at the edge of his vision, not written in the air, but etched into his own HUD. The scream was hers. "The pain is yours." He shivered as though the system itself was whispering through his nerves. "Ah," Claire hissed. "We need to move." The plaza flickered, and Ethan's HUD cracked into fragments, half his view drowned in static. His heartbeat hammered in his chest, each thud sensing with flickers of neon light. Claire pulled Lucy toward the shadow of a digital archway, but their path warped like melting glass, stretching too far to reach. "It's bending," Claire muttered, her voice shaking. Ethan clenched his fists, rage simmering beneath fear. "Someone's doing this," he said, eyes scanning for the source. But no antagonist stood before them, only the silent crowd of avatars whose presence felt heavier than stone. Then a ripple swept through them, like one mind controlling hundreds of bodies. Lucy whimpered again, and the crowd took a synchronized step forward. The silence shattered when every avatar in the plaza spoke in unison, a voice that wasn't theirs, echoing through the digital air. "You were never meant to be here." Ethan staggered, the words vibrating through his bones, more physical than sound. Claire pulled Lucy behind her, her face hardening, her jaw locked. "They're puppets," she growled, but even her voice carried fragments of the same echo. Ethan's gaze darted upward to the fractured sky where cracks widened, bleeding static into neon clouds. It felt less like a glitch and more like something alive, pressing against the walls of their world. Lucy whispered, "It's inside us." Ethan's blood ran cold as he realized the scream hadn't ended. It had only gone quiet, waiting. The neon plaza dissolved into fragments, leaving Ethan, Claire, and Lucy standing in a shifting corridor of code that bent like liquid glass. Ethan's breath came hard, his voice trembling. "This place is rewriting itself." Claire scanned the corridor, her sharp eyes narrowing. "It's guiding us, not glitching." Lucy clung to Claire's side, her bare feet flickering through the code floor. The silence was oppressive, until a low hum pulsed like a heartbeat. Ethan clenched his jaw, frustration boiling beneath fear. "Who's controlling this?" he demanded, his voice bouncing off warped walls. Claire whispered, "Not who, what?" A shadow flickered in the distance, tall and unmoving, yet somehow watching. Ethan's pulse quickened, as though the corridor itself was narrowing to trap them. The corridor snapped open into a vast chamber filled with floating cubes of light, each humming with faint energy. Claire pulled Lucy closer, whispering, "Stay behind me." Ethan reached toward one cube, and as his fingers brushed it, images flared across the air. His childhood bedroom, his real-world face, moments he never wanted seen. He staggered back, trembling. "It knows me," he muttered. Claire stepped forward, defiance in her tone. "Then it knows all of us." Lucy's small hand slipped into Ethan's, her touch grounding him even in this storm of stolen memories. The chamber pulsed brighter, as if feeding on their fear. For a moment, Ethan wondered if this place was alive, watching, waiting, and hungering. Ethan's chest tightened as another cube descended, glowing crimson, and fractured images spilled across its surface. He saw himself mocked in school, shoved into corners, forgotten. His fists shook, and he hissed, "Why show me this?" The chamber answered with silence. Claire placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice steady. "Because it wants to break you." Lucy's wide eyes reflected the red glow, her small voice trembling. "It hurts when you look." Ethan turned sharply, snapping, "Then don't look." His anger cracked the air, and immediately he regretted it as Lucy flinched. He drew in a long breath, guilt slicing through fear. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The cube flickered, as if savoring his pain. The chamber darkened, cubes vanishing until only one floated above them, dripping with black static. Claire's voice sharpened. "That's not memory, that's infection." Ethan stepped forward, teeth gritted. "Then, let's destroy it." He thrust his hand into the static, but agony surged through his avatar, shattering pixels across his skin. He screamed, falling to his knees. Claire rushed to pull him back, her face twisted with fury. "Don't let it win," she shouted. Lucy knelt beside him, tears shimmering as she whispered, "It hurts you like it hurt me." Ethan's body shook, sweat glistening in neon light, but when he met Lucy's gaze, he forced himself to stand again. His voice was hoarse but defiant. "I won't break." The static cube exploded into shards, dissolving into the chamber walls. Ethan staggered, gripping Claire's arm for balance. The floor pulsed beneath them, and a deep voice rolled through the chamber like thunder. "Your pain feeds me." Claire's expression hardened, eyes blazing with defiance. "Then you'll starve." Lucy clung to Ethan's side, trembling but holding on tighter than before. Ethan raised his head, fire flickering in his eyes despite exhaustion. "We're not running," he said, voice steady now. The chamber trembled, and for an instant, the shadow reappeared. Tall, faceless, watching from afar. Ethan's heart pounded, but he didn't look away. Instead he whispered, almost to himself, "I'll never give you that." The chamber dissolved into a crowded arena, neon lights glaring down as avatars cheered in perfect unison. Ethan staggered, disoriented by the sudden shift, his name echoing in digital chants. Claire scanned the crowd, jaw tight, whispering, "They want a show." Lucy clutched Ethan's arm, trembling. A massive screen above flickered, replaying Ethan's private memories, his failures, his rejections, now displayed to thousands. His stomach dropped, rage boiling with shame. "They're using me," he muttered, teeth grinding. Claire's voice was sharp. "Then don't let them win." But the crowd roared louder, their faceless avatars pointing, mocking, as if humiliation was currency. Ethan's fists clenched, his chest burning with the unbearable weight of being exposed. The screen changed, no longer showing Ethan but Lucy, small and fragile, her moments of fear replayed like cruel entertainment. Lucy cried out, burying her face against Ethan's side. He felt fury ignite, a wildfire tearing through his shame. "Stop it!" he roared, his voice shaking the arena. Claire stepped forward, her glare like fire. "Enough!" she shouted, but her voice was drowned beneath the arena's laughter. Ethan's hands sparked with glitching light, his avatar glitching from anger alone. Lucy whispered through tears, "They're laughing at me." Ethan's vision blurred with rage, his pulse sensing to the arena's cruel rhythm. This wasn't just humiliation, it was violence dressed as spectacle. From the crowd emerged Daniel, a trusted ally until now. His avatar shimmered with power, adorned in polished armor and gleaming code. Ethan's breath caught. "Daniel," he muttered, confusion slicing through rage. Daniel smiled coldly, his voice amplified. "You should never have been the hero here." Ethan felt the words strike deeper than any blow. Claire stepped between them, fury lacing her tone. "You betrayed us?" Daniel's gaze flicked to Lucy, then back to Ethan, a cruel smirk spreading. "It's easy to sell out what never belonged to you." Ethan's chest burned with betrayal, the arena echoing Daniel's words like a chorus. For the first time, Ethan doubted himself more than the system. Daniel raised his hand, and the crowd cheered louder, their voices synced like a single machine. Ethan's anger clashed with despair, each breath heavier. "Why?" he demanded, his voice raw. Daniel's reply cut like a blade. "Because you don't deserve this world." The arena lights flared, bathing Ethan in mocking brilliance. Claire's hand tightened on his shoulder, grounding him, but Ethan's heart pounded with cracks of doubt. The screen replayed Lucy's sobs, magnified, as if to remind Ethan of his failures. Lucy whispered, "Don't listen," her tiny voice trembling. Ethan shut his eyes, fighting the urge to collapse beneath the weight of betrayal, humiliation, and unbearable noise. The arena trembled, avatars stomping as one, sound pounding like thunder. Ethan's vision fractured, memories of reality bleeding into VR. Classrooms, alleys, faces of ridicule. He gasped, knees buckling, until Claire pulled him upright. "You are not their victim," she said, her voice a steel blade. Lucy clung tighter, whispering, "We believe in you." Ethan's breath steadied, but his eyes locked onto Daniel, rage now laced with sorrow. "You were supposed to stand with us," he said, voice hoarse. Daniel smirked, the arena echoing with cruel laughter. Ethan clenched his fists, pixels sparking at his knuckles, knowing this was only the beginning of his fall or rise. The arena dissolved into a darker landscape, a labyrinth of fractured glass walls, reflecting endless distorted versions of Ethan. Each reflection twisted, laughing silently at him. Lucy's small hand slipped into his, her eyes wide. "They all look like you," she whispered. Ethan's breath quickened, shame rising like poison. Claire scanned the labyrinth, her voice sharp. "It's designed to break you." Daniel's laughter echoed faintly, though his body was gone, as if his betrayal now haunted the very code. Ethan stared at one reflection where his face sneered back, scarred and cruel. It whispered with his voice, "You're weak." He clenched his jaw, fury boiling. "That's not me," he muttered, but doubt gnawed at the edges of his resolve. A shadow detached itself from the reflections, stepping into form. Ethan's double, identical but darker, eyes glowing with cruel intelligence. Ethan froze, his stomach hollow. "No," he whispered. The shadow smirked, voice dripping venom. "I am what you hide." Claire stepped forward, fists clenched, but her voice trembled. "Don't listen." Lucy buried her face in Ethan's arm, trembling as the shadow advanced. "You wanted power," it sneered, "but you begged for pity." Ethan's hands shook, rage and fear clashing inside him. His double tilted its head, mocking. "You hate yourself more than they ever could." Ethan's breath hitched, the words cutting deeper than any blade. The shadow circled Ethan, every movement echoing his own, like a predator stalking prey. "They laughed because you deserved it," it whispered, eyes burning. Ethan shook his head violently. "Shut up." His voice cracked, too close to breaking. Claire placed herself between them, snarling, "He's stronger than you." The shadow chuckled darkly. He's nothing without me. Lucy peeked through trembling fingers, her small voice quivering. Don't believe it, Ethan. Ethan's chest rose and fell, every breath a war. The labyrinth walls flickered with images of his failures, each one feeding the shadow's presence. Ethan knew if he faltered, the shadow would consume him entirely. The labyrinth quaked, glass walls cracking as the shadow lunged. Ethan barely blocked, their movements clashing like mirrored violence. Claire shouted, "Fight him, not yourself!" Ethan's body shook, his fists sparking with fractured code. The shadow laughed, its blows deliberate, cruel. "Every time you fail, I grow stronger." Lucy screamed, the sound slicing through the chaos, her fear amplifying the labyrinth's distortion. Ethan's knees buckled under the shadow's relentless assault, his strength fading. He gasped, blood tasting real on his tongue, though it was impossible. Rage and terror collided inside him, every strike dragging him closer to breaking. The shadow pinned Ethan against a broken wall, its face inches from his, their eyes locked. "I am you," it hissed, breath thick with venom. Ethan's vision blurred, his strength bleeding away. Claire's voice cracked like thunder. "Stand, Ethan, we need you." Lucy's trembling hand reached toward him, her eyes full of desperate trust. "Please, don't leave me." Something inside Ethan snapped, not in defeat, but defiance. He roared, shoving the shadow back with a surge of glitching light that tore through the labyrinth. The shadow stumbled, momentarily fractured, snarling in rage. Ethan fell to his knees, chest heaving, knowing the fight was far from over, but for a breath he was still himself. The labyrinth shattered, spilling Ethan, Claire, and Lucy into a cathedral-like hole of glowing code. High vaulted ceilings pulsed with shifting data, windows stretched into infinite streams of light, and the air felt heavier than iron. Ethan dragged himself upright, his body aching, but determination burned within him. Claire steadied Lucy against her side, whispering, "Stay close, don't look at anything too long." Lucy's eyes darted nervously as fragments of code fell like dust. Then the voice came again, rolling from nowhere and everywhere. "You are pieces on a board." Ethan looked up as Daniel emerged from the far end of the hall, his golden armor gleaming, his expression unreadable. "Daniel," Ethan hissed, fury flaring at the sight. Daniel smirked, his eyes hard. "You thought I was beside you, but I have always belonged to this." His gesture encompassed the hall itself, as if he was not a prisoner but a commander. Claire's jaw tightened, her words sharp. "You sold us for power." Daniel's smile widened. "For survival, for recognition, things you never deserve." The air quaked with his voice, and Ethan's heart sank, betrayal sinking its claws deeper than before. Ethan's fists clenched, sparks of fractured pixels bleeding from his avatar. "You betrayed everything we fought for." Daniel laughed, the sound sharp as shattered glass. "Fought? You crawled, Ethan." I rose. Claire's eyes blazed, stepping forward with fury. "You were our brother in arms," she snapped. "We trusted you." Daniel's tone hardened. "And that's why it was easy." Lucy whimpered, clinging tighter to Claire, her small voice shaking. "Why are you doing this?" Daniel's gaze softened briefly, then twisted into cruelty. "Because weakness disgusts me, and you follow the weakest of all." Ethan staggered as the words pierced deeper than blades. The hall itself responded, walls pulsing brighter, as if feeding on the betrayal. Ethan's breath came ragged, his voice rough. "You're no ally. You're nothing but a shadow in gold." Daniel's smirk returned. "A shadow still outshines you." The words echoed across the cathedral, magnified by the system itself, until Ethan's chest ached beneath their weight. Daniel raised his hand, and from the walls spilled countless faceless avatars, their bodies shimmering like empty shells. The sound of their synchronized steps filled the hall, a rhythm like war drums. Lucy gasped, pressing her face against Claire's side. Ethan's pulse hammered, but he refused to back down. "You can hide behind puppets, Daniel, but you'll never face me." Daniel's grin spread, his voice sharp. Oh, I'll face you, but not until you've drowned in what you fear most. The faceless avatars formed a circle, hemming them in, their eyeless faces glowing faintly. Claire gritted her teeth. We'll cut through them. Ethan shook his head. That's what he wants. The crowd moved in sync, each step pressing closer, suffocating. Ethan's HUD flickered, showing words that made his stomach twist. Sacrifice one to save the rest. His gaze darted to Lucy, then to Claire, and horror filled him. Daniel's laughter rang above them. Now let's see who you choose. The avatars pressed closer, their faceless heads tilting in eerie unison. Ethan pulled Claire and Lucy tighter into his circle, but the words on his HUD flared again. Choose, or they will. Lucy's small voice cracked. Ethan, I'm scared. His chest ached as her words tore at him. Claire hissed, ignore it. It's a trap. But Daniel's laughter rang louder. Even in code, choices matter. One avatar lunged, its hand a jagged blade of data. Ethan blocked, sparks flying, pain shooting through his arm like lightning. Claire slashed at another with raw fury, her movements sharp and precise. But they were endless, a tide that would never stop. Ethan's breath came hard, anger and despair colliding. Stop using them, he screamed at Daniel. Daniel's cold voice thundered back. They are nothing, but she. His gaze cut to Lucy. She breaks you. Ethan's heart seized. The avatars froze at his hesitation, feeding on the pause, pressing the moment into a wound. Daniel stepped down from the dais, the golden glow of his armor casting long shadows across the trembling hall. The faceless avatars parted for him, forming a pathway straight toward Ethan. His voice was calm, almost intimate, and far more dangerous. You never saw me, Ethan. You never saw how much I hated being second to your weakness. Ethan's breath shook as betrayal cut deeper. Claire's hand tightened on his arm, but she could feel him unraveling. Lucy looked up, her voice fragile. You're not weak, you're mine. Her words lit something in him, but Daniel pressed closer, his sneer poisonous. She's wrong, and I'll prove it. He drew a golden blade of shimmering code, pointing it directly at Lucy. Ethan lunged forward, fury boiling. You touch her and you'll regret it. Daniel's smirk only grew, his voice sharp. Then let's see if you're willing to break. The hall pulsed violently, the system feeding on their fracture, preparing for war. The cathedral of code cracked open into a battlefield of raw data, jagged ground glowing with violent neon currents. The sky above churned, dark clouds bleeding static lightning that split across endless void. Ethan stood at the center, fists sparking with unstable glitch energy, his chest rising and falling like a man carrying both fury and despair. Claire held Lucy behind her, voice sharp with urgency. Ethan, he's forcing this fight. Ethan's eyes locked on Daniel, whose golden armor pulsed with cruel brilliance, blade shimmering like a burning sun. Daniel sneered. No one forced him, he's waited for this. Ethan spat, rage shaking his voice. I never wanted a fight, but I'll end one. The battlefield rumbled as faceless avatars lined the edges, silent witnesses to the duel. Lucy cried, Please, don't let him win. Ethan glanced at her, heart tightening, then set his gaze on Daniel with unwavering fire. I won't. Daniel lunged, golden blade cutting arcs of fire through the air. Ethan blocked with glitching fists, sparks exploding where code collided. Each strike shook the battlefield, shockwaves tearing fissures across the neon floor. Claire pulled Lucy farther back, shouting over the chaos, Don't lose yourself, Ethan. Ethan's breath came ragged, teeth clenched as he forced himself upright after each blow. Daniel's sneer cut deep. You're nothing but failure wrapped in rage. Ethan roared back, his punch sending fragments of golden armor scattering into pixels. For the first time, Daniel's smirk faltered. Lucy's trembling voice rose. He's fighting for us. Daniel's fury sharpened, eyes burning with cruel pride. He's fighting a war he cannot win. The avatars on the edge shifted, their blank faces glowing, feeding the system's hunger for violence. Ethan's vision blurred, but his will remained steel. "Then I'll burn trying." Daniel pressed harder, blades slashing in blinding arcs, his laughter echoing like thunder. Ethan stumbled, knees nearly buckling, his arms bleeding static where the code cut him. Claire's desperate cry pierced the storm. "Ethan, don't let him own you." Lucy's sobs grew louder, her small voice breaking. "Please, stand up." Ethan forced air into his lungs, each breath agony, but those voices pulled him back from collapse. Daniel's blade pierced close, grazing Ethan's chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Daniel raised his weapon high, triumph burning in his eyes. "This ends now." Ethan looked up, sweat dripping, pupils glowing faintly with raw glitch fire. "No, it begins." With a primal roar, he surged upward, his fist slamming into Daniel's chest with seismic force, golden light shattering outward. The battlefield cracked wide, walls of neon fire erupting. Daniel staggered, his armor fractured, for the first time showing true anger. The battlefield became an inferno of light and static. Ethan and Daniel clashed again and again, every strike echoing like thunder. Ethan's muscles screamed, yet rage drove him forward. Daniel's face twisted with fury, his arrogance cracking. "You can't kill what the system feeds," he spat. Ethan growled, "Then I'll starve it." Sparks burned across his fists as he hammered blow after blow, pushing Daniel back. Claire's voice rose, desperate but strong. "You're not fighting alone." Lucy's tiny hands gripped Claire's jacket, tears streaming, whispering prayers under her breath. Daniel roared, unleashing a slash of golden light that split the battlefield into two, separating Ethan from Claire and Lucy. Ethan's heart lurched, rage flooding his veins. "You don't touch them," he screamed, surging through flames. Daniel smirked through the chaos. "They're why you'll fall." The storm above shrieked, as if the metaverse itself tore open. Ethan's fists burned with raw glitch energy, his body cracking at the edges, but his will held unbroken. Daniel raised his golden blade for a final strike, their eyes locking across flames. Ethan's voice rose, hoarse but defiant. "This ends with me." Daniel sneered. "Then die with them." They collided with violent force, explosion of gold and glitch tearing the battlefield apart. Avatars on the edge dissolved into static, the system screaming like a living thing. Ethan's roar carried through the storm as his fists struck, shattering Daniel's blade into 1,000 fragments of light. Daniel fell back, armor cracked, rage twisting his face into disbelief. Claire's voice echoed through the fire. "Finish it." Lucy's desperate cry followed, "Come back to us." Ethan raised his fists once more, his body glowing like a broken star, his heart torn between vengeance and survival. The duel of souls had reached its peak. The battlefield smoldered, static flames licking at shattered ground, silence settling after the explosion. Ethan staggered, his body cracked with glowing fissures, barely able to stand. Across from him, Daniel lay broken, golden armor fractured into shards that flickered weakly. His sneer had vanished, replaced with disbelief. Claire rushed forward, gripping Lucy's hand tightly, her voice fierce. "Ethan, end this before he rises again." Ethan's fists trembled as he stared at Daniel, torn between vengeance and mercy. Lucy's soft whisper pierced the heavy air. "Please don't disappear." Ethan's chest ached, his rage warring against love, the system's hum pressing into his ears. Daniel coughed, smirking faintly even in defeat. "You'll never be free. This world feeds on you." Ethan's voice was hoarse but steady. "Then I'll give it nothing." The battlefield pulsed as though it heard his vow, waiting for his final choice. Ethan limped closer to Daniel, each step dragging across fractured ground. Claire called out, voice sharp with urgency. "Don't let his poison pull you in." Lucy held her breath, wide-eyed, her hand clutching her chest. Daniel's broken laughter echoed faintly, cruel even in weakness. "Strike me down, Ethan, and you prove me right. You're just as corrupted. Ethan's fists glowed, glitch sparks dancing wildly, his breath heavy as if carrying the weight of every humiliation. He lifted his hand, ready to end it, but Lucy's trembling voice cut through. Don't become him. For a heartbeat, Ethan froze, torn by the unbearable pull between vengeance and mercy. The avatars around them dissolved into flickers, as though the system itself leaned in, hungering for his choice. Ethan clenched his jaw, his body shaking with restraint. His voice broke, but his words rang clear. You don't deserve my hate anymore. Daniel's eyes narrowed, hatred twisting his face as Ethan lowered his glowing fist. Mercy, he spat. You'll regret this. With sudden violence, he thrust a shard of broken golden blade upward. Ethan gasped, pain ripping through his avatar as the shard pierced his chest, sparks exploding. Claire screamed, her voice shattering into the storm. Lucy shrieked, tears streaming as she reached for him. Ethan staggered, blood and glitch static dripping down his torso, but instead of falling, he caught Daniel's wrist. His eyes blazed, his voice thundered. I regret nothing. With one last surge of glitch fire, he crushed the shard into fragments, shattering Daniel's arm into cascading pixels. Daniel screamed, his body dissolving into static, until only silence remained. Ethan swayed, barely standing, his breath ragged. Claire ran forward, catching him as he fell to his knees. Lucy wrapped her arms around him, sobbing. Don't leave. The battlefield collapsed, neon ground crumbling into endless void. Ethan held Lucy close, his body flickering dangerously, pieces of him dissolving. Claire gripped his arm tightly, her eyes fierce with desperate resolve. Hold on, you're not fading here. Ethan shook his head weakly, his voice low. The system's inside me, it won't let go. Lucy sobbed, pressing her forehead against his chest. I need you, please. Ethan closed his eyes, his body trembling, torn between surrender and survival. If I stay, it'll consume me. If I go, maybe you're free. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was iron. We fight it together, always. Ethan looked at both of them, heart shattering with love and pain. His words came like a whisper, carrying all his strength. Don't forget me. The void surged upward, pulling at him, the battlefield screaming with static winds. The battlefield was gone, replaced by silence. Claire and Lucy stood in the void, clutching each other, the system's glow fading around them. Ethan's figure shimmered faintly ahead, half human, half light, his eyes glowing with unbearable sadness. Lucy reached out, voice cracking. Come back. Ethan smiled faintly, tears in his gaze. I never left. His body flickered, glitching into fragments of light, dissolving until only sparks floated in the darkness. Claire held Lucy tight as the system whispered its final words, chilling and hollow. Another one logged out. The void collapsed into blinding white, leaving only silence. Claire dropped to her knees, Lucy crying into her arms, the world empty but scarred. The scream that began it all echoed faintly in their minds, a reminder that some wounds never heal. In that last moment, Ethan was both gone and everywhere, a ghost in the code.